Ready? All right. Hello, everyone. Scott Levin. I am here with my friend Jill Jedlicka. Jill, of course, is the executive director of the Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper. I want to say Riverkeeper, but we know the name change was just, what, 2 years ago?
3 years ago.
3 years ago to the Buffalo Niagara Waterkeepers. Jill, tell everybody, thanks for coming on today. We appreciate it, first and foremost. Tell everybody what the Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper does. What is it that you guys do? Everybody's heard of you.
Right. That's very funny because a lot of people say, Waterkeeper, I've heard of that organization. What do you do again?
Right.
We have a team of 26 full-time professionals, and we do everything from community outreach and education. We teach volunteers how to sample water all over the region. We do volunteer shoreline cleanups and tours, but we also do a lot of professional work in terms of planning and designing major restoration projects all along the region's waterways. We also do policy work about Great Lakes and water policy, and I can keep going on and on about all the things that we do.
Are you guys funded by yourselves, or is it donations?
We have a diverse portfolio of how we get funded. We get we write a lot of grants for state and federal government in order for us to pull the money into Western New York to deploy into projects in our community. We also do rely on donations and philanthropy in order to help sustain some of the other work that we're doing as well. So it's a full-time job to try and keep things going.
It sure is. And before we talk about this beautiful spot that we are at here on the Buffalo River, let's just talk a little bit about you. You're the executive director. Did you always want a job like this growing up? Where did you grow up first?
Well, I was born and raised in Lancaster,
Right.
So I'm a native of Western New York. I'm still there in
Right.
Lancaster, and even as a little kid, I used to love to play outside and play in nature and play with tadpoles and toads, and that was my favorite thing
You were
to
an
do.
outside nature girl.
Always
Okay.
was. And then when I graduated, I didn't know if I was going to be able to stay here in Buffalo because
Right.
it was that time of that big brain drain of my
Right.
generation. I chose to stay here, and I was lucky enough that my career evolved, and I get to do work in the community that I love.
And where did you go to school?
I went to Lancaster High School, and then I went to the University of Buffalo. I have my undergraduate in environmental studies, and I have a master's in business.
And how did you get involved with this organization and move up to become the executive director?
My first environmental job out of school, I actually worked for the Erie County Department of Environment and Planning.
Right.
I was there for 5 years, and that's when I was introduced to our predecessor organization called Friends of the Buffalo River.
Right, I remember. Right.
So I was on the board of that organization for a few years. And then after I had my first child, when I left the county, the Friends organization recruited me, and then I started working for them, and it's been over 16 years.
Unbelievable. So if you had to tell someone who didn't know anything about your organization, what is the goal of the Waterkeeper organization?
Well, our mission is to protect water quality
Right.
and connecting people to water and restoring the ecosystems around here. So it's sometimes people think, oh, environmental organization, you're just
Right.
about the fish and the birds. Like, no, we're about
No.
the people and the
Right.
community and access to water and clean drinking water and all things water.
Speaking of that, how are we doing now? How is our drinking water? How are our rivers, like the Buffalo River here? How's the lake? How would you rate us right now?
Well, we're doing better in some areas, and in other areas, we're kind of backsliding a little bit. So
Really?
I think with the Buffalo River, it's interesting because 1969, this river was declared biologically dead and caught fire 4 times. So nothing could be found here. But after multiple decades and $100 million of collaborative efforts, we were able to restore and breathe life back into this river.
You guys took a ton of waste and pollution out of it, right?
Oh, yeah. So in partnership with the DEC, the EPA, Army Corps of Engineers, all sorts of different agencies and partners, we were able to pull out over 1 million cubic yards of contaminated sediment from the bottom of the river. And we restored 2 miles of shoreline through habitat restoration efforts. So that took well over a decade to get all that done.
So the Buffalo River, where we're standing right now in downtown Buffalo,
Yes.
how would you rate its condition now health-wise?
We still have some work to do in terms of the sewer overflow problem that we have.
That's a big problem,
It
right?
is a huge problem. But the good news is that problem is steadily being addressed because whenever you deal with an infrastructure issue, it
It's
takes,
old.
yes, this is a 100-plus-year-old problem that is all over the Great Lakes too. So these systems were designed this way to overflow into our water. So it takes a long time to get those systems to change.
Now, a lot of people might think when we have sewage overflow that it's affecting our drinking water, but that's not the case, right?
No, I mean, nobody really wants to think about sewer overflow into the waters that we pull our drinking water from.
Right.
But here in Buffalo, Western New York, one of the main areas is actually out in the Emerald Channel, the Niagara River, where we pull our drinking water from.
What are your biggest challenges now? I was thinking about it today. You guys have done so much over the last 10 or 15 years.
Right.
What's the biggest challenge going forward now?
Well, I think we have a variety of challenges. I think the biggest one right now is managing the belief system that our job is done. You know, we had a great celebration that we've made progress, but there's still so much more work to be done. We can't be apathetic like we were in the 60s and 70s.
Right. How do you choose your projects then? Because you can't do it all at one time.
Right. So we actually have done holistic assessments of our entire watershed to figure out what areas need the most help right now and where can we affect the most change. So we, meaning Waterkeeper, we start to prioritize what waterways, what communities, what partners are ripe to be able to start to make that change.
How is the long-term health of the Great Lakes right now?
The Great Lakes are doing better than they were in the 70s, but with Lake Erie is kind of the canary in the coal mine. And we are seeing problems with Lake Erie right now.
Really?
In terms of the harmful algal blooms out in the western basin.
We've been doing a lot of stories on that.
Right, a lot of the runoff that's happening. We are seeing climate change impacts on the ecosystems and on the health of the lake. The lake level issue is huge too for both Lake Ontario and Lake Erie. In some areas, the health of the lakes is improving. In other areas, it's starting to slip again.
You guys have, I believe, also gotten some awards too, right?
Yes, we have multiple awards in recent years, 2 international awards, and the one that was a capstone was called the Tees International River Prize. It was awarded to us in New Delhi, India.
Wow.
And so the Buffalo River Partnership and the restoration has been recognized globally for the work that we did because it was a collaborative community effort to restore this waterway.
We are really lucky. People who live here sometimes don't even realize that we're surrounded by an awful lot of bodies of water.
Oh, yeah.
And we have more water here than most cities could ever dream of.
Yes. I mean, 20% of the world's fresh water flows past our front door every day.
20%?
20%. Our front door, right? The Niagara River is functionally all of the Great Lakes, or the 4 Great Lakes draining into Lake Ontario.
It is unbelievable. When you see a boat like this go by here, it must make you feel pretty good.
This is part of the ecotourism industry. We couldn't have timed that any better. That is starting to thrive now, and it's amazing to see that even 10 years ago when we said we wanted to restore the Buffalo River and people would say, yeah, right, good luck with that one.
Right.
Now the community is embracing, yeah, this is a recreational corridor. This is something as part of our history, part of our economy. You know, we have huge economic growth happening here.
And look, we have apartments built up. We have riverworks over here. There's so much that is growing down here. What would you say to the folks that are home watching this about coming down to enjoy some of our water?
Well, I think it's for generations, we have entire segments of our population who were afraid to come down to the waterfront.
Right.
1, because they didn't know how to get there. 2, because they were afraid of what they would find when they get there. But our waterfront is completely changing. And the best way we can steward and protect these water resources moving forward is if people continue to come out and recreate and want to advocate to protect them.
What is it that you love about Buffalo? What is it that keeps you here? We want to get to know you.
Right.
What do you love about Buffalo?
It truly is the people. I mean, we hear that all the time. I mean, obviously my family, you know, keeps me here. But I've traveled all over the Great Lakes, all over the country, talking to other peers of mine who are trying to do the same things. But there's a different mindset and a cultural attitude here. I don't know if it's maybe because we're all in this together,
Right.
but there is a collective that says, no, let's make change. Let's improve our community. And you can't fake that. You can't invent that in other cities. It's just a natural thing here in Western New York.
And before we go, I just want to ask you, you said we still have some challenges. We're seeing some areas where we may have stepped back.
Right.
And that's important that people realize that while we've made so much progress over the last 15, 20 years, there's still a lot more work to be done.
Yes, there is. And it starts with individual citizen action and behaviors. People think, you know, when you're talking about either climate change or plastics or whatever it is, they're like, I'm one person, what does it matter? It does matter because it adds up, and one behavior can affect 10 behaviors because it can affect 100 behaviors. And now you've got the groundswell of the community taking action.
What about volunteers, people at home, if they want to get involved with your organization? is there room for
Oh,
people, for
absolutely.
volunteers?
Absolutely. We mobilize over 3,000 volunteers per year with all of our shoreline cleanups. We do restoration projects. We train people how to monitor water in their own communities, in their own neighborhoods. So if you're interested in any of that, you can go to our website, give us a call, and we're happy to welcome more volunteers.
Jill, Jedlicka, thank you so much for coming
Thank
out.
you.
We really appreciate your time today, and hopefully you at home, you'll get involved. Just give the Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper, which used to be the River Keepers, a call. You'll be glad you did. Thanks, Jill.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.